So before I get started on installing the Thermo-Bob 3 mod on my Gen 3 KLR 650 back here, I just want to make a couple points. First of all, I'm not a motorcycle mechanic, so don't use this video as any sort of assembly instructions when you're doing this on your motorcycle. There's a great write-up on how to do this on the Wattman website. Make sure you check that out and use that. Also, I'm not going to try to convince you that this is a mod that you need to do to your KLR 650. However, if you've got one of these bikes and it doesn't burn any oil yet, I would say maybe at least just look into why people are doing this. For me personally, I decided to do this because before the 10RA700 here, I had a Gen 2 KLR 650, which, unlike the Gen 3, did have a temperature gauge. During the initial test ride, before I even bought the bike, I noticed that the temperature gauge was completely buried on the cold side. The other thing that I noticed about that bike is when it would finally heat up if you were in stop-and-go traffic or really rough, slow-moving trails, when the temperature gauge would come up, it would immediately drop back down, and that's because there's a giant inrush of basically ambient air temperature coolant forced into the extremely hot portion of your motor. Again, not a motorcycle mechanic here, but I can't imagine that that constant fluctuation in temperature is really good for it and could possibly warp a few things in there. So to me, it seems like doing this right away is a good move for me. I guess we'll just see how it goes. So in order to get a little bit better access, I'm gonna pull both of these side panels off. They come off relatively easy, just a couple fasteners here, here, there, and there. There's also gonna be 3 Phillips head fasteners that you're gonna need a short little screwdriver like this to get at. It'll just come out like that. And then once you think you've got all the fasteners removed, there's still gonna be one back behind this piece, and this just pops off. There's 2 pins that push into grommets here and here. And if they came with this piece, make sure you stick them back in there. Don't try to install this with them on there. Once that's removed, there's gonna be one more fastener right here that you've gotta take out. These do all have, there it went, little tiny plastic washers on them that, well, make sure you don't lose. One other thing to mention is if you've got some squeaking going on, it's probably because of this. I guess, did it wear through it? I thought it wore through the tape that they've got on here, but I think that must just be this thing degrading? I don't know what's going on. Where'd all the dust come from? Anyways, that's what was squeaking on mine to begin with. Don't be afraid to double check that you've got everything, but once you're sure that you do, this panel is just gonna be kind of loose at the bottom here, but still tight up top. And what you have to do is essentially pull it straight away from the bike. There's 2 more grommets that are tight. Ugh. So it was this one and this one that I was stuck on, but as you can see, they just come straight out like that. So with that removed, then we've got a little bit better access to the thermostat housing, and of course we can actually fill our radiator back up. We will also be popping the cap off of this just to make sure that we get all the fluid out that we need to and there aren't any air bubbles stuck in there. Obviously I've already got the skid plate removed. That is a necessity. I don't know if you have to jack this up, but if you do, make sure that if you still have the high profile plug that you don't rest the bike on that. So next what we're gonna do is drain the antifreeze from the bike, and that's gonna be done by removing the drain plug on the bottom of the water pump housing right there. I've got my jug ready to catch it. Before I take it out, I'm going to remove the radiator cap. This is gonna be pretty hard not to make a mess, but we'll do our best. Crush washer's already hanging out up top there. That's not good. Work that down so it comes with. There we go. Don't get too much of a shower. And then once that's slowed down a bit, I'm gonna stick this back in. And then, believe it or not, I'm gonna torque that back down to what the instruction manual recommends. There we go. All right, next up we've got to remove the thermostat housing and the old thermostat. We will get some liquid out of there, so I'm going to get some paper towel ready for that. It's just going to be these 3 fasteners then. I'm going to do them each a little bit at a time. I probably lost the majority of my coolant, but I'll still be careful anyway. Yep, we're gonna have some more. Oh yeah. Put that right there for now. Remove our old thermostat. This will not get reused. It might have to get wiggled a little bit. There we go. Looks like there's a little bit of dirt on there, so I'm gonna swipe that off. Then next up is gonna be this little rubber O-ring that gets stuck inside where the old thermostat was. And will hopefully just hang out there for us. Before I stick this back on, I'm going to check to make sure that I don't have any stuff on here either. Then after that comes the Thermo-Bob itself, as well as our new thermostat. And you want to install this so these little ears that stick out of the sides don't interfere with your temperature probe off to the side there. Like this. It just kind of fits in there like that. So the body of it, the main portion, is stuck inside of the Thermo-Bob itself. I've got my new fasteners ready to go here. Put a fastener through this. Grab my Thermo-Bob assembly here. Make sure my O-ring is still in place. This is going to get installed like that. I'll line that up there. Make sure my thermostat stays in place. Line that up. I'm actually going to grab another bolt here. I'm going to kind of yank on my hose. Seems like maybe it's not quite long enough. Alright, so I stuck that bottom one in there, hoping that would help me out here. I'm going to spin these all in a little bit at a time until they're just about to contact the thermostat housing. So I don't know if you guys would really be able to see it, but my coolant hose was kind of down on the bottom part of the head here, and that's why I was fighting it. Also what I had to do is pick it up a little bit, and then you've got more than enough slack, I think. So just be mindful of that, I guess. Seems like it worked out okay, but it was kind of wanting to peel itself away, which was definitely giving me some problems. I'm gonna grab the tool that I probably should have had the whole time, which is this, and just kind of snug these all up just a little bit at a time. You don't want to do any one too much and then leave the other ones hanging out, because you could pretty easily break this piece. I believe that's probably cast aluminum. So again, just gonna torque these down to the recommended spec in the instruction manual. I'm gonna do these just a little bit at a time. Before I actually hit the torque spec though. I actually double checked the old fasteners with this before I removed them, just to make sure that I wasn't over torquing them. Also probably would have been a good idea to make sure that nothing was pinched, so you want to make sure that everything is sitting flush here. You don't have any edges popping up. Really should have done that to begin with. Seems like we're good though. If you would, then you'd definitely need to pull it back apart and see why it's not seated properly. But we will kind of be squishing stuff down slowly as we go here. I think I might be getting close to the point where this is going to click. I'm no torque wrench expert, but I know you do want to torque it in one fluid motion. You don't want to come back to a fastener and have it click, because then you might be under torqued a little. There we go. It moved a little bit before it went. As did that one. And just a friendly reminder, when you're done using your torque wrench, turn it back to the minimum setting or whatever it recommends. So the next thing we got to do is remove the radiator hose that runs from the coolant pump here up under the exhaust and to the under left side of the radiator through there. I'm just going to kind of give this thing a twist to crack it loose. went. Just have a heck of a time pulling it off. Taking this through the other way would have been good too. So the instructions don't say anything about this piece of rubber here, and I don't know if that's something that was just added on the Gen 3 recently, or if this just got removed on the older models too, but I think that's what I'm gonna have to do. So I ended up just kind of rolling some of this back, starting to slice it, and then I just tore it the rest of the way off. The portion that was glued on, I think most of what we're looking at here is just residue left from either this piece or whatever they used to fuse the two together, but I would be real careful when you're doing this. I wasn't really too sure if I was pulling the outer layer of this off or not. There's a few kind of deep pockets in here, and I think they're just pockets in the residue that's left, but I would be careful that you're not tearing off the outer layer of this. It might have just been better to peel some of it back, slice it off, but I didn't like cutting anywhere near this. However, now I'm about to cut it apart. So this piece is gonna get stuck to the back of the radiator. We'll kind of come down at an angle like that. I'm gonna put my clamp on so I can access it from the outside of the bike. We want our barb stuck back the kind of opposite way that this is facing. So that'll go on here. I'm gonna put my other clamp on this side of the hose and work that back together. Now the instructions did show a really nice diagram for making marks on here, making a mark across where you're gonna cut so you can line these two up that direction. But my thought was I'm gonna be able to kind of manipulate this a little bit once it's on the bike, and I might have ended up wanting to change that a little bit anyhow. So I would recommend, again, going by the instructions, but I guess we'll see how this works out for me. Fish this back through from the other side so I don't have to deal with the barb. Oh yeah, so that's wrong. Crank the barb up a ways. Alright, so now I've got that twisted so it's kind of straight up, which again, still might not be completely correct. Peel this out of here. Get it reinstalled. You can kind of see what I've got going on there. Basically what I'll have to do now is just kind of rotate everything around into a point where it looks like it's sitting in a good position and also not rubbing on anything. Alright, so I actually took this back out, tightened up my worm clamps on the T-valve, put it all back together, and now I'm gonna shove these down into place and put my clamps back on. Am I doing this out of order? I feel like maybe this should have been on there already, but maybe not. I'm gonna have to feed this through and stick it on that T-valve. If I'm gonna do any cutting, I'm gonna end up doing it out here. That'll probably be a little bit easier. Yeah, this probably should have been on there already. I guess with this turned out that way, maybe I can still get it. Getting on the barb might be a little hard though. So I was able to get that side on pretty easily. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend that. I guess it worked out okay, so whatever. I got that side tightened down though. This side I am gonna cut off a bit. And the reason I'm gonna do that is because this is left long, it has a little bit more slack and it can kind of curve towards my hot exhaust pipe here. I only got about a finger width there, so I will trim that up a bit. Somewhere around there. Aim that down, I'm cutting it so I don't knock anything into the tube. So if you guys are new to the channel and you'd like to see some more videos like this, or videos where I take the KLR 650, my GoPro, 1 or 2 360 cameras, and head out into the beautiful Wisconsin woods to explore the trails here, and you want to see those videos every weekend, then click that subscribe button and click the bell after you subscribe. That way it'll let you know anytime I put a video out. I just realized I mounted this worm clamp on the elbow down here incorrectly. This should have been spun around 180 degrees. There's a hole behind it that you can kind of see there. There we go. So that's actually a drain hole for the spark plug area, but I'm told that actually works pretty well to blow compressed air up there. And I wouldn't be able to do that now with that clamp in the way. So make sure you guys mount that the other way around and you'll have a much easier time when you need to go to change your spark plug. I'll have to move that. Pretty happy with how that ended up looking there. We've got plenty of room between the pipe and that tube, and everything looks pretty good down there too. Looks like we cleared that. Hopefully I didn't pull the tube right into the side of the motor. Hard to see with camera, but I think we're good there too. Yeah, I'd say that all looks good. So with all that squared away, the next thing to do is going to be to run my temperature gauge cable, and I'm going to have to kind of snake that up through to the point where I'm going to mount it on the dash, and I'll just be kind of zip tying it as I go in safe places away from anything hot or anything moving. So I'll get this figured out and show you what I ended up with. Alright, so there may well be a better route than this, but this is what I end up with. Runs up to a zip tie on the O2 sensor, then it just kind of scoots along the insulation on the bottom of the tank, gets zip tied to the wiring harness on the bike there, runs around to a zip tie there, again on the wiring harness. I've got a few more zip ties along the way, kind of snakes around there a bit. Zip tie, and this is going to be a little bit hard to show, but it shoots across to the center of the bike. Zip tied right on the opposite side of that center support there. That white plug that you're looking at is the wiring. So there's that little welded ear on both sides. You can kind of see the hole on this side, and actually there's the zip tie that wiring gets attached to. I did not drill any holes in here. I just have this mounted with a VHB tape. If you guys haven't caught that yet, I'm putting the same antifreeze back in that I took out, partially because it's going to be right about the right amount, maybe a little bit less, and also because all the other antifreeze that I've got in the garage is probably older than the stuff that came in the bike. So I'm definitely not suggesting you do what I just did there. I easily could have knocked something into that container and then could have poured it back in here, but it looks like we are kind of just right at the top there. I'm sure we did lose, a bit on the floor. Obviously, there's some green down there, but as long as I run through a few warm-up, cool-down cycles and my reservoir isn't below the low level, I don't really think I'm going to worry about it too much. So now at this point, I'm just going to kind of give everything a once-over, making sure that I didn't forget to do anything. I'm also going to kind of dab up any of the drips that are still on the bike. That way, after I do my warm-up sequences that the instructions describe, then when I go through and do my check to see if anything was leaking, if there's any drips, I'll know that they're new drips. Once that's complete, I'm gonna put the bike all back together and take it out for a ride. If you guys wanna see that video where I'm out testing this, kind of seeing how the Thermo-Bob acts and what the little readout on the dash tells me there, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, click the bell after subscribe so it lets you know anytime I put a video out, which is at least once a week. If you guys can get out, enjoy this beautiful world, make sure you do that today. But if you can't, here's some more videos to check out in the meantime. Thanks for watching, take care, stay safe, and stay swanky.